Capitol Report is a production of Senate Media Services.
Efforts to help businesses and individuals impacted by the ongoing pandemic come to the forefront in the Senate. Plus, DFL lawmakers push for paid family leave and ranked choice voting. Stay tuned for this week's Capitol Report. Welcome to this week's program. I'm Shannon Loehrke. Eric Pratt, chair of the Senate Jobs and Economic Development Committee, faced the daunting task of improving Minnesota's economic landscape amid the lingering effects of the pandemic. He joined me this week to talk about his funding and policy package designed to help jumpstart the Minnesota economy. The Senate has passed its Jobs and Economic Development budget bill last week. How challenging was it to craft a budget for the coming biennium with the economic picture still unclear as the pandemic lingers?
You know, in some ways it was difficult, but in a lot of ways, we know what the economic crisis looks like. We know we're facing record unemployment. We have a deficit in the unemployment trust fund, twice of what we saw during the Great Recession. We know that small businesses, Main Street businesses are hurting. So we know what the problems are, and so we know how to address them. The problem is that the problems keep lingering. You know, we're not balancing the response to the pandemic, so we continue to put these small businesses at risk. And we're really hoping that we can keep as many of them without plywood in the windows while their doors are locked.
The bill creates a small business loan guarantee program. What is the intent and who will be served?
Well, the intent is to make sure that we can infuse capital into the business market. Whether it's for working capital, inventory, having to make accommodations in order to meet the governor's orders and the CDC guidelines. Say for Minneapolis, it could be for partial reconstruction or repairs of a building. The uses are wide open, and any business that's in desperate need of affordable capital but is afraid that they can't necessarily get it from a bank on regular terms, our guarantee helps. We did a similar program last spring. We lent out about $10 million with $7 million into the reserve fund. This time we think we can make $250 million available with about $80 million in the reserve. And this time what we've done differently is we've deferred the first payment for the first year. So the state will pick up the first year's worth of interest so that these businesses that have been shut down, that haven't been generating any income, can get their cash flow healthy before they're required to make their first loan payment.
Workforce training is important, especially as workforce needs are changing. On the Senate floor, you said you don't just want people to have jobs, though. You want them to have careers. How is this possible?
Well, a lot of the programs that we invested in have a good track record of building careers, whether it's, some of the entrepreneurial loan funds that help people start their own businesses and be successful, whether they're programs that help Minnesotans get second chances because of addiction or mental illness. Those are programs to me that, as we looked at them, have a track record of not just getting somebody a job today, but sets them on a course for a career tomorrow.
Minnesota has already faced a shortage of child care providers for some time, but COVID-19 has made the problem even worse. Parents can't work if their children have nowhere to go. What's included in this bill to help?
So, there's child care money in a lot of the bills. We put $3.2 million in. 200,000 to help a small daycare in rural Minnesota, and then about $3 million for startup grants for childcare. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, my neighbor runs a family childcare, and she's only operating at about 30% capacity. With schools being closed, with parents working from home, it's difficult, and we need to keep these small providers open, because everything tells us that in the fall, more and more people will be going back to the office. Maybe not all the time, but sometimes, and they're going to need a place for their children to get good quality care while mom and dad are trying to bring home a decent paycheck.
You led passage of one of the toughest wage theft laws in the country in 2019. But as with many laws, there were some problems with the initial one. This bill solves some of those problems. What are the reforms?
You know, shortly after we implemented the wage theft law, I got a lot of contact from business owners saying that it was difficult to implement we call it the wage theft notification. We said that before someone starts, you should give them a letter that tells them how much they're going to make, what their hours are, what their benefits are. It sounds real simple. But the way it was implemented, and the law had some ambiguity, the Department of Labor actually implemented it in such a way that was very difficult for business owners to comply with. It's better, but there's still more room to go. And so, you know, my goal is to remove the ambiguity in the law, because 99% of our employers are good employers. We want to catch the bad actors. We want to catch the people who are stealing wages, but we want to make it easy to comply for those employers that are doing the right thing. There were two other provisions. One was to put a cap on some penalties. We inadvertently removed a cap on penalties, and this, I think, is the only penalty in state law that doesn't have some sort of maximum on it. So those are the primary changes, and I'm hopeful we can get them through because they're really pretty common sense.
Also part of the bill are some changes to how COVID-19 and executive orders have impacted businesses. Businesses would be allowed to operate at full capacity as long as they have a COVID-19 preparedness plan, and businesses would initially be given a written warning for violations instead of fines. Further, the law would change to prevent this governor or a future governor from mandating business restrictions by executive order without the consent of both the House and the Senate. Had this already been law, how would the state look differently right now, do you think?
I think if this had already been law, we would see an economy that's healthier than it is today. We would see a government that is not fighting with itself, but working together. The governor, in my opinion, has while the law gave him broad powers, he has at times intentionally bypassed the legislature, even on some things that we could have easily gotten done. I'll give you an example. We last year passed some unemployment insurance changes to allow it to make it easier for people to apply and receive unemployment because they got laid off on very, very short notice. Well, the governor extended those, didn't come to the legislature asking for an extension. He did them by executive order, when we've already proven that we can do something like that and work together. Now, we have a lot of businesses. In fact, even last fall, the governor allowed many businesses to open up even without a COVID preparedness plan. And then in June, restaurants, bars, everybody that had been under restrictions had to have this preparedness plan. It's worked well. Businesses take it very, very seriously. I know that every Main Street business in my district does not want to be known as the source of a COVID outbreak. And so this has been a nice balancing where if you have an outbreak, you have a plan that you know exactly what you're going to do. And if you're not the source of an outbreak and you're operating in a very cautious and responsible way, you get to operate your businesses in a way that allows you to serve your customers and keep your employees safe.
And finally, before we go, under this package, workplace accommodations will be expanded for pregnant and nursing mothers. I think many women, myself included, have memories and stories of those days when you were trying to balance work and new motherhood. How will women be better accommodated?
You know, that's a great question. And I want to thank Senator Julia Coleman for, really taking the lead on this issue. What it allows is women to have extra time to express themselves during the first year of, after pregnancy. While they're pregnant, it gives them accommodations. We lower the threshold of employees in a business. Right now, certain accommodations are only available for companies that have 21 or more employees. We lowered that to 15. We put restrictions on how much they could lift, that they have to have accommodations to be able to sit if they need to sit. These are just really common sense things that most employers are doing already. And we thought it was a good chance to put them in the state law and make sure that whether you're working in St. Paul or St. Cloud, if you're expecting a new mother, you have the same set of criteria that you're working from.
Senator Eric Pratt, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
During the Senate floor debate on the jobs bill, lawmakers spoke passionately about the need to help businesses damaged during last summer's civil unrest, along with those owned by minorities.
I have thought many, many days that I shouldn't come back here because I am not able to respond to my constituents effectively. If you drive in the districts, if you drive in the streets in my districts and you see these buildings, if you drive in Senator Fateh's district and you see these buildings, if you go to Senator Champion's district and you see these buildings, you will cry with me. You will cry with us. I cannot believe that you say that you have loans that they cannot pay back to help them out. This is so unconscionable. It's just unconscionable. I hope you find a way to resolve this issue. I really sincerely hope that you are able to negotiate this in another way.
The money that Senator Pratt has in his bill is statewide, but to say it's not for them to use as well is just not accurate. We did Section 179 last year. It was for the entire state of Minnesota, but it clearly helped any of those businesses that suddenly need to buy a lot of equipment to be able to expense it up front. A whole nother big pot of money that Minneapolis, I didn't even look up St. Paul's, but Minneapolis got, the estimate is about $281 million of federal stimulus outside of the money that the state got of $2.6 billion. They got another approximately $281 million, and that can be used for small businesses. Well, I don't know what the city of Minneapolis is going to use their resources for. In addition to that, our education system got a big influx of federal stimulus money. Most, by quite a bit, went to Minneapolis and St. Paul. And so we've not forgotten Minneapolis and St. Paul. This is without a doubt, a difficult issue, and I appreciate the passion of the good senator. I do appreciate the passion.
We are living, Mr. President, in a moment. And history is going to judge us as to what did we do in the moment when we could do something. And all of us can do something because every one of us are important. It is my hope that Senator Pratt and all the others who are engaged and will be engaged in worthy conversations about what the finished product looks like, that they intentionally include all of us. Because we truly are one Minnesota, and I'm looking forward to that opportunity when I'll be able to stand and say, my good friend, you did see me. You did see the people that I represent, and you did make the necessary sacrifice to improve our quality of life. Because we all deserve to live in prosperity, in good health, and in safe communities.
When we talk about the $100 million that's going to go into the loan fund guarantees, it's going to leverage $250 million for businesses. Members, that's open to anyone, any business. We have $30 million for business development grants, $14 million for Pathways to Prosperity, $2 million for emerging entrepreneurs. Members, that is available to any business around the state.
Senate Minority Leader Susan Kent has long advocated for extending paid leave benefits to all employees who need to care for themselves or their family members. She joined me to discuss this and other proposals that DFL members hope will be included in the final Jobs and Economic Development package. You have been a champion for paid family and medical leave for several years now. Who would this legislation impact and how is it paid for?
Good morning, Shannon, and thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation as always. You know, you and I have talked about paid family and medical leave over the years, and the biggest part of the answer to this question is ultimately everyone. Everybody at some point in their lives has some need to take time to care either for themselves or a family member, and that's what this is designed to do. Whether it's parental leave, like with the birth or adoption of a new child, either for either parent, whether it's one's own major illness or injury, think cancer treatments where you just have to take time off because those treatments are really hard. But once you've gone through them and you're doing well, you can go back to work, or a major injury, similar sort of thing. Or if it's a family member who is going through similar situation, or if it's our parents as they are in their last months and days. Those are the kinds of people that it will help. At the same time, it will be helpful in bigger issues like with small businesses. Small businesses would love to be able to offer these kinds of benefits to their workers, to be able to compete in terms of attracting and retaining really great workers, people who are valuable to themselves and their customers. But it's just too expensive because their only real option is either to self-finance it or to use disability, which is much more expensive. This would be a much more competitive process. And then ultimately, whether it's the child care system or our caregiving system, which is so stretched for workforce, this would provide some relief there.
And then, so basically, does it work like a cooperative or an insurance plan, and that's where the cost savings are, but all these people pay in and then they use the benefit however they need it?
That is exactly right. And it is designed so that employers can either pay the full amount or they can share it with the employee. That either way is fine. It's a very modest, it's a sliding scale kind of a thing. We've had small business people who have 30 employees estimate it would cost them about $5,000 a year if they took on the whole cost. And, again, they would pay a lot more to do that with disability policies. And you're exactly right. By having everybody in, it completely lowers the threshold and the costs for everybody. And what's interesting is this has really been stress tested in the past year in other states that already have this. So we went through the pandemic where a lot of people needed a lot of time off for their own illnesses or for family members and loved ones. And in the states where they had this, they saw it still worked very smoothly. The costs did not skyrocket in a way that were not at all. I mean, they were able to absorb it just fine.
The House companion bill is moving, but there were no hearings granted in the Republican-led Senate. The DFL held an informational hearing last month, and the Republicans were invited to participate, but to no avail. Why do you think Republicans are generally not on board?
Oh, that's probably a really long answer. I would put it into two buckets. One is and we're seeing this across a number of issue areas this session. There's just a real resistance to consider new ways of doing things. There's a real keep things going the way they have been. But what we've learned in this pandemic is that what we've had really hasn't been working for too many people. And what I've said is that when we do not offer a safety net for people and in their jobs and in their families, often it's women, but certainly it is Minnesotans who become that safety net. And that's not fair. We saw women step out of the workforce in just a dramatic way. And so we need to get past the resistance to change and take some of these things on. The other thing I would say is, there has been resistance from some sectors of the business community, which I think is interesting because the big corporations are doing this on their own because they're large enough to be able to absorb all of that process, right? And but we've seen this in a number of issues where businesses are saying, "Oh no, this is going to be disruptive. This is going to be bad for business. It's going to cost us too much." There's a lot of fear. There may be an inherent risk-averse nature, and I say this as somebody who came out of the private sector. But I just encourage everybody to really envision what this can be like. The cost is modest. It's much less than trying to do it on your own. One of the statistics in all of this that really drives home the point to me is that 25 to 30% of women go back to work 10 to 14 days after giving birth. And there is not a single woman in this world who chooses to go back to work within 2 weeks of giving birth. They do that because they don't have a choice. And they do that because far too many employers are either not able to offer it or just, won't, right? We need to provide that resource and support for our families.
So to your point about the businesses who are already doing this, Market Watch last week wrote about retailers like Target, Amazon, and Walmart now having introduced paid family leave. Since October, federal workers have access to a benefit, as do Minnesota state employees. Do you think there will possibly be a groundswell of support as this becomes more normalized, as more people are aware of places where they can have this benefit?
I think you absolutely encapsulate how this dynamic is going. And I would also add in there, as more and more states are offering it and everyone realizes that, hey, wow, this actually could work. Yes, again, larger businesses don't do this out of the goodness of their heart. They do it because it's good business. And they know that it's expensive to lose and have to recruit new employees. Turnover is expensive. And so if they have good workers, they want to keep them. And they know it's a competitive advantage for them to have that as an incentive for people to come to them. So yes, I think as more businesses do this, as more people have the chance to really see the benefit of it and how it works, we're going to see, as is the case, eventually people come around to these things and they become adopted. But in the meantime, people are waiting. People need the support now. We should just go ahead and recognize that this will be fine. It will work for businesses and for workers and the people who are relying on their care. And we should go ahead and do this.
Now, had this had movement in the Senate, it would likely have been included in the Jobs and Economic Development omnibus budget bill, which passed the Senate last week with virtually no DFL support. What are some of your caucus's concerns with that bill?
It's reflective, I think, of a lot of the budget bills that we're seeing at this stage of session. The Republicans, because we have a surplus that is largely one-time money, that really limits how it can be spent. It can't be spent in areas like our schools where you have to hire teachers who would be there longer than 1 year. It just simply doesn't work in the way our budget is constructed and the way our entities have to use those funds. So the concern from our caucus is that it's not honest budgeting, that they're trying to use gimmicks and shifts to try to balance the budget and pass these bills, but it's really not serving the people of Minnesota. We firmly believe that these budget bills really reflect our priorities, and that the bills that are being offered by the Senate Republicans, as in the case of the jobs bill, just don't do what they need to do. Frankly, the jobs bill doesn't have a lot of bad stuff in it. It's not that we're deeply opposed to what's in it. It's just that it falls way short of the mark at a time coming out of this pandemic where Minnesotans are counting on us to step up and do the right thing.
So one other question on that point. On the Senate floor, DFL lead of the Jobs Committee, Senator Bobby Joe Champion, expressed concern for the lack of economic development for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and women in Minnesota. What more could be done in that area?
Well, paid family and medical leave and sick leave would be a good start, for example. It is inadequate on wage theft protections. And it just doesn't make the investments that we know are needed by people who are historically underserved. Through just the structures of the way things have been done, have less access to capital and to startup resources and to the networks that those who have traditionally benefited from our system have had. And so that is how we have these inequities perpetuated. And that is why we need to be intentional, particularly coming out of the pandemic, when we realize that this pandemic has not been borne equally by all Minnesotans. There are those who've been just fine. And in many cases, as we've seen, there are some companies that have profited amazingly well. On the other hand, it's really clear in the numbers from our budget forecasts and from our economic and jobs numbers that job losses and income losses have been borne by lower income workers, people of color, women, particularly women of color. We need to support them because they've already had a really rough year, and we need to help them get caught back up so that this does not become a lifelong drag on their economic well-being.
Senate Minority Leader Susan Kent, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shannon.
On our program last week, we focused on several election reform proposals. Since then, Senate DFL members held a virtual press conference to promote ranked choice voting, a process now used in several Minnesota cities.
We are here to address a terrible flaw in our election system. In the current system, the less popular candidate can win without a majority of the vote. And that's because today we only require a plurality of the votes to win. So if there's more than 2 candidates, it's possible no one receives a majority. And then we simply give the victory to the one who receives more votes than the others, even though they don't receive a majority.
Ranked choice voting helps to allow for more grassroots, community-based candidates. These candidates can build coalitions through our communities. Building these coalitions leads to more positive issue-based campaigning.
As we are building up legislatures that have more women, more diversity, more folks of color who are bringing in their issues, their stories, their communities, it is more important than ever before that we reform our voting practices in order to not only make it welcoming for them, but make it work for them as well.
Voters can be tricked, I think, sometimes, and it doesn't serve their interest to have fraudulent candidates on ballots. So one of the great things that ranked choice voting will do is it will stop that practice.
You like an alternative candidate, if you like our up-and-coming candidates, if you are concerned about spoilers, if you're concerned about a popular initiative that just can't seem to get the support, if you don't like negative campaigning, if you don't like the choices that are forced on you by the 2 major parties, ranked choice voting is your savior.
I'm really interested to see how ranked choice voting can help with that, to allow people to vote their conscience, and then also to rank someone as a second choice, to have a fallback and to still have their voice heard and their vote matter, and not be not have the fear of having their idealistic vote be sort of thrown away.
Join us again next week as we delve into more topics affecting Minnesotans. I'm Shannon Loehrke, and on behalf of all of us at Senate Media Services, thanks for watching.